Welcome. I'm Shannon from the Needham Public Health Department and the Needham Coalition for Youth Substance Abuse Prevention. Spring is in the air, and right around the corner is prom and grad season. Teens are crafting elaborate promposals, and they're planning their post-prom parties. Joining me today for a conversation on how parents can help plan for a safe and fun prom and graduation season are Dr. Joe Barnes, our principal at Needham High School, Marian Slavin, she's the co-president at the Needham High School PTC, and she's also a parent of 2 teens, and Nicole Luka, a junior at Needham High School and a student leader for SALSA, which stands for
Students Advocating for Life Without Substance Abuse.
Thank you. Prom and graduation season is an exciting time for students, but it can also be a very stressful time for parents. For example, what are your expectations about your child's behavior during these events? Do you know how to communicate best with your teen, and are you comfortable with your teen leaving Needham following the prom for a party or an overnight? And are you familiar with the school's policy on chemical health? And lastly, are you knowledgeable of the Massachusetts social hosting law? Dr. Barnes, you recently sent out to parents of Needham seniors a very informative packet of materials about the many end-of-year events that are going to be happening. It included specific requests for parental support around safety at prom and graduation season. You asked that parents review the information with their teens so that they understand the rules and the consequences, and you made a request of parents about hosting pre- and post-prom parties. Can you discuss with us, please, how parents can help support the safety of teens around prom and graduation season?
Sure, Karen. Well, I think to reiterate what you said, this is an exciting time of the year. It's a time when students and parents and staff as well look so forward to all of the events coming in the next month or so. It's a time also that we want to be sure that students and parents have a clear understanding of the expectations. You certainly can't hold anyone responsible if they don't know what's expected of them, and we feel that same way during the school day. So the packet, you're right, was rather comprehensive. It included events, it included dates and times, some cautionary measures also, because I don't think you can avoid the fact that if there is a violation of a substance abuse policy that's clearly delineated by the school committee, that we're not going to have to address that, and we'd rather not. But I think students have to understand that there are many, many good things that are going to happen the next month.
Yes.
There are also some opportunities to make some bad judgments, and we don't want that to happen. So in the packet that you referenced, there is a sign-off that we expect parents and the student to sign, right, understanding the policy and what the potential consequences would be. I think more than anything, we want this to be a fun time for everybody. Mm-hmm. As a parent myself and a parent of students who are much older than seniors in high school now, it's a time when parents, you hold your breath, you want students to do the right thing, you want them to have a good time, but you want them to be safe. First, right, and foremost, be safe.
Right. So I do understand that I believe it's called a senior contract.
That's right.
And that needs to be signed by both the parent and the senior.
Correct.
Okay.
Correctly. Both signatures, just so that there's that communication, right, that we always want to have not only during the school day, but also for events like this.
Right. What should parents know about the Needham High School chemical health policy?
Well, it's very clearly delineated. It's a policy that the school committee has put together. We have worked closely with them on what we think are the important elements. It involves a lot of state law. It involves the local police. Unfortunately, we have to deal with them in some situations. It involves a lot of good common sense. Mm-hmm. There's nothing special here that we wouldn't expect kids to understand during the school day. These activities are an extension of Needham High School day, and all of the rules and regs that we have during the day also apply to these events. And we don't want anything to get in the way of they having a good time. But as I said before, most importantly, we want every student to be there at graduation. We want them to be safe and sound after these fun events.
Absolutely, right. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Marian, as the co-president of the Needham High School PTC and also as a parent of 2 teens, what would you say is the most important piece of advice that you can share with parents heading into prom and graduation season?
Well, first of all, I would like to reiterate what both of you said, that as a parent, my most important thing is to keep our children safe. So safety is foremost with some of the advice that comes next. It's not about squashing their fun. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's a season of enjoyment, and we as parents would love our kids to have a great time, and have great memories, but we need to keep them safe. And hopefully they'll make the good choices that we've already taught them. But my number one piece of advice would be talk to your teen. They'll listen. You might not think they're listening, but they will. And it's not too late, so you should talk to them more than once. Sort of reiterate all the things that we've talked about and how to keep them safe. And most important thing is choose a good time to do that, and not when they're cranky and stressed and taking an exam the next day, and certainly not waiting until they're getting dressed, but in between, a good time when you're sitting in the car with them or at a dinner table when it comes up that all the things that Joe talked about, the policies and the good judgment calls, and it's an extension of who you are at the school.
Exactly.
And those are the kind of things. So what I would say would be to clearly communicate those expectations. So what do you want to talk to them about? Drugs and alcohol and their curfew. Make it clear up front, not wait until it's 2 a.m. and you're looking for your child. So that there's real clear understanding. And then opposite, this clear understanding of the consequences also of actions that they have.
Now, Marian, what would you say to parents who maybe aren't used to having conversations like this all along with their teen? Is it too late for them to have this now?
No, absolutely not. It's never too late. First of all, you're going to have these conversations all their life, so it's a good way to get started. Suggestion is maybe not role playing, but think of scenarios that possibly could happen, both good and bad. I mean, and hopefully that bad won't happen, but sort of scenarios. And so if this happens, do this, and if this is the way. Just talk like you do with everything else.
Right.
And I think it's really important to talk about the safety of you is without alcohol and drugs. And I think, and there's so much fun to be had that way. And I think that's what we need to tell them.
Where can parents find some of these resources online, Marian?
Well, there are a number of websites. There's social host laws, and there's DUI laws, and I think there's chemical policy at the high school, which I think many parents already know about, but it's good to review it. But there's loads of websites online to talk about how to talk to your teen.
Right. Yes, in fact, the Public Health Department here in Needham has pages and links on our website to be able to help parents navigate to different resources.
And I've read those, and it's a great site. It's a great resource.
Yes.
I've used it in both roles as a parent and to learn more as my role in the school.
Great. What would you say in terms of parents talking to parents and how that can play out?
Well, that's a good one also. I say make that call, send that text, reach out to other parents who your child, especially at prom. I mean, you're fairly safe at the all-night party. We'll discuss that a little later. But the prom is where they're unsupervised, and you don't necessarily know the kids they're with. And I think certainly the person that they're going with and the group, reach out, make sure you're on the same page. If you're not, make a deal on how it should be. Make sure that other parent along with you is talking to their child as well. Right. I think it helps a lot, and I find that most parents want that. So, but don't be afraid to make that call or send that text or get together or whatever. And I'm sure there's also opportunities while you're actually taking pictures. So there's a lot of time to be able to talk. But I think it's a crucial piece of advice. And I also think then the next step is know where your teen is at all times. So all through that evening plus others, there's other evenings during this season where there might be unsafe situations, or it's unknown situations at least, and make sure that they know how to contact you, make some plans beforehand so that any child doesn't have to not know what to do. So I think that's really crucial.
Post-prom parties. What advice might you have in that?
Well, number one piece of advice I had is try to keep it local. I mean, I know there's a temptation to want your child to go where many kids might be going, but the closer the better. I think there's less opportunity to drive, and even though others might be driving them, and you don't really necessarily know the supervision in those remote locations many times, and you might not know the people, so it's safer. Obviously, maybe this is obvious to me, but don't make plans for your child to be in a hotel room. I mean, I think that might, maybe a bunch of girls or a bunch of boys if they're remotely, but I would suggest just keep it where they can get home after they're not going to sleep. So
Right.
I would say keep it as local to be able to manage safety and manage risk
Right.
and that kind of thing.
And one final question I have, Marian, in terms of your teen maybe being in a situation they're not comfortable, what would you suggest parents arrange ahead of time with their teen?
Well, I call it the unconditional offer in our house, and I suggest that to other parents. Give your teen the option to call or text you at any time for help and advice in a safe way, no questions asked until later, but if they need you. So therefore, I know it's happened many a time, keep your ringer on because they might be calling you at 2 a.m. Last year at the all-night party, someone wanted to leave and the parent was sleeping, and the contract does not allow a child to be on, a student to be on the streets until the 5 a.m. leaving time.
End of the party,
and it was
right.
only because the parent had not had their ringer on. I'm guilty of that myself at many times when my child's trying to reach me. So it's something that I, as I said, it's unconditional. You just make sure your child knows that they can call. There's no situation that they can't ask you about.
Right.
It might not just be them. It might be a number of people that feel that they need to get home or
Right, and they need a
whatever.
ride.
And it's unconditional, and it's not why. It's more, okay, I'll be right there, and then later on you can
Have the
figure out
conversation.
have the conversation and
Right.
figure out the situation.
Can I just add to
Yes, absolutely.
what Marian was saying? These conversations are easier for some parents than others. The communication is much easier in some families than it is in others. I think most of all, though, that this is a situation where, with prom season coming and all these activities at the end of the year, you don't want to look back and regret that you didn't try to have that conversation. There are tragedies, we hear about them all the time. In the last few days, there have been deaths, and you don't ever want to say, I wish I had said something
Right.
and regret it. So I think you have to really step forward and do the very best you can, given what the family situation is.
Yes.
And my feeling that goes into the future. It helps your relationship, and it means the conversations will happen all their lives.
Right.
And I think that's important.
And I think getting back to a point you made, Marian, just in the very beginning about talking with your teen, that it may not seem like they're listening.
Right. I believe that and especially after you say it the second time and then your child says, I know, you've told me that. So even though they look like they were like snoozing on you or
Right.
not paying attention, I think they want the conversations. They loved you, you love them, and
Right.
they do listen, and they hear even when you don't think they're listening.
Right.
And I think that's really important to know. And I think that just builds your relationship, and I think it makes prom season safe.
Nicole, Marian was just referring to parents reaching out to other parents and finding out what the plans are between parties and that type of thing. Have your parents ever made that phone call to another parent, or have they been on the receiving end of a call? Let's say if you were heading out to a party, has that ever come up in your...
Yes, it happened
Experience.
multiple of times, different birthday parties or different party occasions, and my mom would make the call asking if there would be an adult supervising, and
Yes.
we've received multiple of calls from my friends and their parents asking if there would be an adult there too.
Okay. What do you think is the best approach for parents to talk with their teens?
I think using the unconditional offer is really helpful. It's kind of reassuring to know, and having that conversation at a car ride or at dinner, it would be nice to include that. It's always like more casual than having a specific time where you sit down and make it a little uncomfortable.
So perhaps calling your teen into the living room to have a chat isn't always as successful as it seems?
No, definitely not.
And do you have any other suggestions for parents on what they can say to their teens, particularly this time of year as more freedom is hoped for by teens and so many activities to attend?
Just telling them that they have to make their own decisions because now we're adults and we're holding our own future in our hands and we need to be more responsible, and just to know that we have parents who care about us and will be there for us if we need them.
And do you think that it's helpful for parents to err on the side of being more strict or less strict as they're conveying their hopes and expectations?
I think you have to kind of find it in between to give them their own responsibility, but tell them the consequences.
Right. And finally, do teens listen to their parents?
Yes, definitely. Many times I even kind of display myself as not listening to my mom, but in the end I always do.
There we go.
Can I add to that? That strikes a chord. I'm the father. Ellen and I are parents of 2 boys, considerably older than anyone here, I think. And one of our sons, we thought never listened, and because he seemed to do his own thing. To this day, and this is about 30 years later, he can quote line for line some of the things that my wife said to him. We thought it was going in one ear and out the other. They do take it in. They listen. Sometimes they don't respond. They may not show that they're listening.
Right.
They do. They do. They hear you.
And
They
it
hear
comes
you.
back full circle.
It comes back. Yes.
I'm with
Thank
Joe.
goodness.
I've seen behaviors that were definitely identical to what I have sort of suggested, that I thought they were scoffing at my suggestion. And I know my children like the conversations too. I think it makes them feel safer and more comfortable. It's in the
Right.
safety of the home or in the car without friends around. So I think the conversations are great, especially that all we're trying to do is make this season as safe and enjoyable as possible.
Absolutely. Joe, Marian, and Nicole, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate your help in spreading the word about prom and graduation safety.
Thank you for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for watching.